Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review Panopticon by Dreamcrusher. Dreamcrusher is a harsh noise and power noise artist that has been doing works for lots of years, but it's up until recently with some of his works in the early and mid 2010s being some of the more important and some of the most well received and most popular works of power noise music, and they totally deserve it. And for all of those years, Dreamcrusher, yeah, it has managed to become a big name for what it offers, and a very important thing is the feature in one of the albums from Show Me the Body, which was a very solid work. So not only it is a very promising project, but it has definitely managed to create a big name in the underground scene. Now, when it comes to the sound of Dreamcrusher, it contains lots of different elements of a very catchy side of noise music, but what you get for the most part is some very loud noises. All of the Dreamcrusher projects are extremely loud, heavily compressed, and distorted as fuck. Dreamcrusher's music feels like the epitome of a dank meme in music form. You know, like how you have with your dank memes being fully compressed to the max and being extremely loud to the point where it gets ridiculously distorted. But what's the great thing with Dreamcrusher is that it is combined with some very great elements of just catchy music, and there is melody and a technicality to it. It's not just messing around with different samples, just having an indecipherable and mimey result. What we get with lots of the works from Dreamcrusher are actually very well developed, and you get elements of like techno music, and there is a very nice touch with lots of the different samples, and some occasions the works can also be a bit dark and quite emotional at some occasions. With Panopticon you pretty much get the same formula. It's not like something is drastically changing, even if there is a long time since we've seen a full-length project from Dreamcrusher. This project still has the intensity, the noise, and the loudness you would find in any of the previous projects. So I got into this thing having high expectations, and I got what I wanted. This is an incredible result, and I would definitely say that this has become one of my favorite Dreamcrusher projects. It is a very well crafted album, and it pretty much follows the formula in a very good fashion. Now, this album is just one lengthy track that goes for 39 minutes long, but this very lengthy track feels like it's separated in lots of different portions. I feel like it's about 10 tracks or something like that, but each one of those tracks just seemingly continues one another. They're not that similar one from each other, and there are some cases where you get a very significant transition going from one track to the next with a very loud percussion section that is apparent in some moments throughout this entire album when it goes from one track to the next. Now, this album in my opinion makes an amazing introduction. At first it starts with a more of a smooth track that doesn't just go instantly into the harsh noise segments. We get this very eerie and quite atmospheric piece of dark jazz music that is quite haunting, and then after this point you get those spoken word sections, and then after the song progresses you have those very good free improvised noise segments that are just repeated in a very good fashion, and this track just builds up and gets even more intense as the track progresses. This goes for 7 minutes and it's a very nice way of starting this album, and when the track gets a bit smoother and tones down a little bit, then we abruptly get into the second moment of this lengthy track, which was also teased towards the release of the album. And this is where we get the very noisy and just very intense moments that have made lots of projects from Dreamcrusher shine. And this is such a great and intriguing piece with this sample that feels like it has a throwback in like 70s prog. There are some fantastic loop sections to this thing, and I like that we get those vocals from Dreamcrusher that are just so indecipherable in the background and just really dark and haunting. And then we get into another great piece, which is the third track, which was also teased toward this album, which also feels like a throwback into like an 80s new wave or disco sound, with this quite simple and basic drum beat which gets distorted as fuck in this track thanks to the great processing of Dreamcrusher. And then you get another portion of just some great loop sections where it feels like a bass melody that it's so distorted it almost feels like a very weird guitar sound. The one thing I would like for this track is to be longer because it has a great idea and it's a very short piece. After this point you have this sudden transition where you have the loudest moment in this entire album. The volume and the compression just get significantly higher and you have this very weird sample just being extremely loud for a couple of seconds, and then you transition towards the next moment. After this point we get some very catchy and very distorted tunes, something that is usual from lots of Dreamcrusher projects. I don't think we get some amazing moments, but there were still some standout works, and I like that it still keeps this throwback vibe of dance tunes. Then towards the second half we get some lengthier moments, something that I would love with some of the tracks in the first half. However, some of the ideas towards the second half are not that memorable or that gratifying in my opinion. So even with these lengthier tracks, I think that some of them come out a bit simplistic or I'm not that much of a huge fan. So it is at this point where I think the album goes slightly downhill. However, the album even in this moment has still lots of promising works and it still keeps its balance. But definitely the only other moment that managed to really stand out for me, it is the outro of this album, which starts with this very eerie spoken word section, and then you have this melody that feels like it's out of a music box and it's just so loud and so distorted, and then there is a bass melody attached to it which is also extremely distorted, and it makes for a fascinating result. It is definitely one of the most imaginative, one of the most well crafted tracks with such a captivating and cleverly done melody. I love this track a lot. And so in this whole lengthy track it goes for a lot of different things, but overall it has a vibe that I wanted from this album and I love it. Panopticon is such a relentless, raw, filthy, disgusting album with its very grating and so heavily distorted sounds. This is pretty much what I wanted and I'm very pleased with its result. Even if it has its moments where it's not as gratifying, I still think this is one of the greatest projects from Dreamcrusher to date, and this is definitely an absolute recommendation for anyone who is aware of their works. I'm going to give Panopticon an 8- out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.